How are you guys doing this wonderful evening? Welcome to another episode of Fresh Brewed Kentucky Politics. Hopefully y'all can join me this evening live. It's on YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching this as a replay, you don't feel like leaving YouTube and Facebook open to hear my wonderful voice, feel free to check out the podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple, and it's called Fresh Brewed, KY Politics. I thank you guys so much for joining me this evening. As always, if you want to show us some support, come on by the coffee shop. It's at Malibu and Nicholasville Road here in Lexington. As always, if you're listening from somewhere not near Lexington, but you want to show your support for what we do, the projects we're working on, like Uncancelable, this project that we're working on here at Brood, to help not just ourselves, but conservative individuals and conservative businesses become uncancelable. You can show us some support there. Sorry if I seem a little dirty. I've been working outside today, and I'm jumping on here for you guys. And so if you want to buy our coffee, though, online, you can go to brewedco.com, BREWEDCO.com. You can go to our shop there, buy beans online, and show us some support that way as well. I just want to thank you guys for joining me this evening as we dig into it. We're going to talk about a couple of different things today. We're going to talk about an op-ed I read in Sunday's newspaper here, the Herald Leader, and about the Republican Party, a little bit of pushback for them. We're going to talk about masking as a virtue signal, interesting article about that as well. And we're going to talk about the biggest scam I believe that no one has noticed that the left, the Democrats, have been able to accomplish. But first, guys, please go ahead, hit the share button. If you're watching this live, hit the share button. If you're not watching this live, hit it anyways. If you're watching this on a podcast, turn to the person next to you and say, hey, listen to Fresh Brewed Kentucky Politics. We will jump into it. Yeah, we're going to jump into it. Sorry, somebody threw me off there, correcting my grammar at the very beginning of my title. I'm sorry, Nick, Assistant Nick. I already fixed it. Oh, it's already been fixed, guys. Okay, so calm it down. Already been fixed, okay? All right, guys, so digging into it today. Who are the dumb ones? So there's an op-ed that was in this Sunday's newspaper at the Herald Leader, which I know you guys don't read it because it's a liberal rag, but I will pay for the subscription for all of you and tell you what's in there for us to complain about here. So Larry Webster, who is apparently, let's see, I don't know. He's just a guy. But Larry Webster has wrote an article called GOP has reached herd immunity to intelligent thought and other news from scoundrels. So I'm going to kind of hit some of the highlights here. He starts off by saying the Republican Party has reached herd immunity to intelligent thought. It has all but died out among the GOP. The milk of human kindness has curdled in its chest. The Republican doctrine, resistance to fighting climate change, may prove it to be the most dangerous political party in the history of the world. Its policies are on the whims of a scoundrel. Of course, they're talking about Trump, because with Liz Cheney getting ousted out of the House, a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, Republican Party is the party of Trump. You guys are not getting it. You will not get it, because as you can see, I don't see very many Republicans, including myself, talking about Trump. I do not post about Trump often. I had my own issues with Trump. I liked some of the things. I know he lied about a lot of things. I don't think he lied on purpose per se. I think he just naturally had a thing about trying to look good. That's okay. I didn't like the bump stock ban. I didn't like a few of the policies he did. There's some things he could do better, but you're missing on why people like Trump. It wasn't necessarily because he was this amazing bastion of conservative thought. It was because he wasn't a member of the swamp. He wasn't a member of the political elite that had been colluding for decades to bring us the same policies of endless war, big government, government in your life, government taking you down, not shrinking the size of government like they all have been saying they wanted to do and not doing. So this Trumpism move isn't a move of Trumpism per se. It is a move of Republicans waking up and saying enough is enough. If you're saying you're for small government, if you're saying you're for liberty, if you're saying you're for getting out of debt as a country, we demand to hear, we demand to see those play out. No longer will we be sufficed with words, because when it counted, when it mattered the most, when during COVID we relied on you to stand up, you didn't. And we're no longer falling for your false words. We are looking at actions. It's got nothing to do with Trump. Nothing to do with Trump. But of course, the Democrats can't handle that. They can't handle an idea that there's actually something and somebody and a party that's going to do more than just say, let's stop the Democrats. They're going to actually have policy goals and demand you get out of our lives. And that scares them. So it goes on. Its policies are at the whims of a scoundrel. The goal of those policies is to select who can vote, and if the election doesn't go well, just let the scoundrel decide who won. I don't know about you guys. I encourage you to read this Time article called How the Election... I forget what it's called. Is it Time News article? Nick, can you look up, please, for me? Times News article, Fortifying the Election. Times ran an article all about how a secret cabal of people fortified the 2020 election from Trump. And it just so happened they're on the left, but they're doing it to protect democracy. And they said this out loud in a Times article. It is a long article, and I encourage you guys to do that. But the bottom line is that they're so tied up around Trump, they're not seeing the pushback. And they want to talk about, oh, well, let the scoundrel decide who won. It's not what it's about. They continue. The scoundrel, meantime, is trying to figure out how to get more attention to his whims. At the same time, backing his boots to ride the downward escalator and get on it soon and preempt non-scoundrels for running for president as Republicans. Does anyone think it odd that the thoughts of an ex-president are considered too dangerous for the public to hear? Pause. Yes, I do think it's odd, sir, that the thoughts of a prior president are being censored. That's shocking to me. Shocking to me, considering he was not convicted of doing anything wrong. But of course, he believes it was he's rightly being muffled. He's not rightly being muffled. But of course, that's how it works. Meanwhile, it goes on to say we're all idiots and we don't want to get vaccinated and we're all terrible people. What's interesting is they're linking the Republicans to vaccine hesitancy. But when I go on and saw an article today, or saw a quote today from a Dr. Emily Brunson, the associate professor of anthropology at Texas State University, she had this to say about people who are not getting vaccinated. She said, I think we need to avoid the trap of thinking that information or knowledge is enough to get people to get vaccinated. Because for a lot of people, and when you look at the hesitancy and parental vaccine hesitancy in the U.S., the group who is most likely to purposely choose to not vaccinate are highly educated. In speaking with them, these are people who have actually read the primary literature themselves, and they are correctly interpreting it. So it's not a misunderstanding. They have other concerns that go beyond the traditional public health message of this is what you should be doing. To put it in other terms, the issue of why they think we're stupid is because we have actually read the studies that the experts are citing. See, we don't just take an expert at blind faith, because we in the Republican Party have had our leaders lying to us for a very long time, and we're waking up and we're realizing it. So because of that, we don't trust it anymore, so we're going to read your source material. And when we read Pfizer and Moderna's source material that says things like, if you have had COVID, getting vaccinated is of no added benefit, guess what? We don't get vaccinated if we've had COVID. It's not because we're dumb, it's actually because we bothered to actually read what was going on in the first place. But of course, this gentleman writing this op-ed in Sunday's paper, Larry Webster, he thinks, oh, we're all idiots and we're all at a scoundrel and we just want people to die. And I'm tired of hearing these arguments about you just want people to die. And of course, he goes on to say, oh, they only want to get rid of Liz Cheney because of Trump. No, we want to get rid of Liz Cheney because, well, quite frankly, she represents a neoconservative ideas that we no longer stand for. Now, this gentleman writing this knows this because he says here, why is vaccination stalled? It's damn sure, sorry guys, that's what he wrote. It's in the newspaper. I personally don't like to swear. In the mountains ain't because people are afraid of needles. Wow, look at that, a stab at all of us for being drug addicts. Anyways, no, an unmasked face in the crowd is neo-Trumpism. Did you find the name of that article? An act of defiance. Has everybody forgotten that for most of 2020, Trump preached that virus wasn't much to worry about, may even be a good thing, and he looked funny in a mask and go ahead and spread your droplets? Now, that article in the Times I was talking about is called The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election. I encourage you guys to check that one out. Sorry. Thank you, Nick. First, I don't remember Trump ever really saying that. Of course, he made fun of wearing a giant mask and wearing masks in situations that scientifically don't make sense because, studying the source material. But let's all remember, if it was really about Trump, Trump came out and got vaccinated. Trump came out and told people to get vaccinated. The vaccine was developed under Trump's administration. If we were blindly following Trump, the vaccine might be one of his greatest accomplishments during COVID that, of course, the liberals will steal from him. But regardless, if we're just blindly following Trump, wouldn't we all be the first ones to get vaccinated? I don't know. Maybe that's a crazy idea. Or maybe we're just, hey, we don't trust, we verify and then trust. But of course, we're all the dumb ones. Meanwhile, you had this article from Washington Post called To Mask or Not to Mask. When David Diaz went for a recent 5-mile run in Iowa City, he took along a partner he had depended on for more than a year, his face mask. Diaz, 29, knew he did not have to. He is fully vaccinated, and recent federal guidance says unmasked outdoor exercise is safe. Imagine waiting for the federal government to tell you that without realizing it yourself. But anyways, at first he wore the mask around his neck, but after passing people 1 block later, he pulled it up and began to wonder why. Why was he posturing? Was he showing concern for others? Was he worried a passerby would view him as an anti-masker? Was he actually being anti-science? At what point are you doing more harm than good and letting fear or something rule your life? Diaz, a data analytics consultant, said days later, it's still a thing I'm trying to work through. So you have a gentleman, this David gentleman, who's going for runs with a mask, knowing he doesn't have to, knowing scientifically there's no reason to. First off, he's outside already and not in close contact with people for any extended amount of time, well-ventilated areas. Scientifically, from the beginning, we've known that COVID doesn't spread there. That's why outdoor mask mandates have never made any sense. That's why a lot of people didn't follow them, to the point that when the governor here in Kentucky lifted the outdoor mask mandate, a lot of people said, what? Outdoor mask mandate? Because nobody had been following that. I don't think lefties have been following that because that's so disconnected from science. But here he is saying, I am worried that people might view me as anti-mask if I follow the science. Follow the science. Kind of a follow-up later on in that same article, shortly after that. It says, forcing a recalibration of a relationship with an accessory that has served as a shield against a deadly pathogen, a security blanket during a crisis, and a symbol of regard for the common good, liberal politics, or belief in science. That is so key. So I remember growing up being told it is not polite to talk about politics. A lot of times when especially older generations talk about a return to normalcy, that is what they're talking about. They're saying, I want to return to a time when we did not discuss politics. Politics did not matter. And that's what they're saying they want to return to. However, I'm here to tell you guys, I don't think we'll ever return there, especially not when you have one half that has decided to put on a visual representation of your politics. A person I know who is a liberal that has worked on many campaigns of liberals, including Amy McGrath, the other day made a comment saying they were afraid to not wear a mask in public because they didn't want people to think they were a Republican. The masking has become a visual representation of your politics. And that's the real issue. Because we've given people the permission to shame you for not wearing a mask, a public representation of your politics. We have given people the permission to publicly shame you for your politics. What sows more diversity in America than that? Outside of course, all the times over the last year, where they've come to you and said, I want to take your job, I want to take your life, I want to take away everything you've worked for, I want to tell you have to stay in your home, I want to tell you you're not allowed to leave, I want to tell you can't go see your grandparents, I want to tell you can't see your friends, I want to tell you can't hug people, I want to tell you can't be inside with people you know maskless, I want to tell you how many people can come to your Thanksgiving, I want to tell you your 4th of July is canceled, I want to tell you that you will not be free again until next Mother's Day, maybe, as Fauci recently said. Beyond that, creating division by one side of the aisle, quote unquote, because of their liberal politics or belief in science. It's always been about politics, especially the masking. Anybody who's certified a mask through OSHA or any other place knows that a bandana doesn't do a thing for you. Doesn't do a thing for you. But yet people were wearing it, forced compliance. We know that. That's why we're pushing back against a mask mandate, because we know at this point it is a political symbol. And when you're mandating the mask at this point, you are mandating I put on your symbol of your politics. Another excerpt from the article. At a macro level, mask wearing in the United States has not been driven by public health advice or mandates. Researchers and pollsters say it is strongly associated with political affiliation. Yet they want to gaslight you and say it's just a stupid mask. It's not just a stupid mask to them. It's a signal of your politics. And when you're not wearing it, they're not mad you're not wearing a mask. They're mad that you don't politically agree with them. And how dare you dare to question their thought process? How dare you? Another excerpt. Democrats essentially have some sort of signal that, yes, Democrats essentially need to have some sort of signal that says, yes, it's okay to change your behavior. I posted this the other day on our Facebook. Masking has become the anti-MAGA hat. Remember when wearing a MAGA hat was considered racist and terrible? Literally, the slogan of the sitting president of the United States, you had to feel guilty or bad about wearing his campaign out amongst the people. So they pushed back and they decided masking was going to be the Democrats' MAGA hat. But the problem is the science doesn't support wearing it. And at some point you have to realize you're not actually helping anyone. Following farther on in the article we have here where it says, it's hard to say when it's going to hit that comfortable point that people can just be outdoors without a mask and not only not worry about COVID. Let's go through here. They said it's hard to say when it's going to hit that comfortable point that people can just be outdoors without a mask. Be outdoors. You should have always felt comfortable being outdoors without a mask. There have always should have felt comfortable being outside without a mask. You have people saying, I'm feeling uncomfortable being outside without a mask, and it's surely because they don't want to think. Like, I don't want somebody to think I'm a dirty Republican. How dare they? Anyways. Can just be outdoors without a mask and not only not worry about COVID, but also not worry about what the people around you are thinking, said Whitehall 31, who works at Pennsylvania State University. It's not like you're going to run up to people and say, I'm vaccinated. Yeah, you are. How much do you guys want to bet that for masking to go away, there's going to be somebody who rolls out a sticker of some kind, some signal, a bracelet that you wear, like a blue bracelet. Can't be red. It's going to have to be blue. A blue bracelet you wear around your wrist to say, I'm vaccinated. So when you're not wearing a mask, and you're wearing a blue bracelet, you can tell everybody you're vaccinated. How far away do you think we are from that? Just because if you don't want to wear the mask anymore as a virtue signal, but you're so used for over a year, I mean, it doesn't take long to program new behavior into humans. And so for over a year, you've been used to wearing some sort of virtue signal to say, I care more about the people around me. And of course, young people who've even already had COVID are getting vaccinated because they're told that's what you need to do because you need to care about the people around you, even though the science, once again, supports that having had COVID says you are less likely to catch COVID than you are if you've been vaccinated. To put that in perspective, there have been somewhere around, 35, 40 million COVID cases worldwide by this point. Less than 50 confirmed cases of people catching COVID and then becoming reinfected with it. Here in America alone, there's been around 100 people who've been vaccinated that have died from COVID. That's 100 people who've died in America. Only 50 cases worldwide of confirmed recatching. The science had never supported it, but of course, it's your virtue signal, and they need to put it on. Here's something that a gentleman named Nathaniel says in the article. It just makes me feel comfortable and a bit safer. The only time I ever enjoy taking it off is at home. Here's another part. I worry that people taking off their masks outside will lead to everyone not wearing one, and then it'll lead to people taking them off inside. I'm worried about variants. When asked, this individual here she says, Wong is her name, and I'm worried about the variants. When asked when she might feel comfortable leaving the mask at home, she said maybe fall of 2022, or maybe even spring of 2022. Wong has said she will not feel comfortable leaving her mask at home for another year. For another year. Let's read another one here. Kathleen Vanderberg, 46, lives just 20 feet from the Boston border. She's planning to start running again next week, and when she does, she'll do so in Boston. Why? Because she has mild asthma, and breathing while running is easier without a mask. But she plans to keep it on her chin, not for anyone's safety, but to avoid being seen as anti-masks. Isn't this the same party that paraded the song by Lady Gaga that said, just be yourself? Doesn't matter how you were born this way. Just be yourself. Who cares what people have to say about you? You just live your lives, guys. And yet here they are wearing something on their chin, not for science, but because they're afraid of being seen as anti-mask. Because they're afraid of being seen as anti-mask. All along, we've been told to follow the science, and the science says the risk of transmission outside is low. Very low. Especially if you've been vaccinated and keep your distance. It's like zero. If you've been vaccinated and keep your distance, it's zero. Zero chances. The mask wearing mandate here seems like it's more about shame than science. At what point do you start pushing back? At what point does this crazy thinking end up leading to people joining us on our side of things? At what point? I don't know. I don't know at what point that ends up happening, but I'm telling you this much, we are seeing more and more people coming over to, quote unquote, our way of thinking simply because people are looking around and realizing this isn't what I signed up for. I signed up for normalcy. I didn't sign up for being shamed if I wasn't wearing a mask when it's scientifically not necessary. That's not what I signed up for. Earlier today, I was reading some people's comments about the labor issues happening here in America, where there's a labor shortage because people are on unemployment, making more on unemployment than they make while working. And I was watching an exchange, and I read an exchange between what was apparently a business owner or hirer and an individual commenting back. And the person commenting back said, the job apparently paid well. It paid $16 an hour, had benefits, everything else. He's saying, I can't get it back. Can't get the person back. Because, of course, if government is paying you, I believe somebody did the math, $21 an hour is the effective rate. $21 an hour to not work. To get you to work, you're talking you got to pay around $30. If that's the effective rate for the highest paid people. Here in Kentucky, which every state has a different max, our max is $569, which is why, once again, a flat across the board $300 a month thing is kind of weird. So take like Tennessee. Tennessee's max, I believe, is somewhere around $250 a week. So their weekly amount is $550. But because Kentucky's weekly max is $569, I believe, our max here is $869. Big difference. But of course, that's what happens when the federal government is just handing down edicts. But they had an exchange where she ended up saying, well, you just need to take a pay cut to hire that person or close your business. And I said, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where people view small business as having endless cash? I mean, we just went through a period where we have 25-30% of small businesses closing here in Kentucky. In some areas, even more. I know New Jersey got as high as 50-60% small businesses closing. And to say, well, just pay them more money, I'm like, why do they think that way? So let's take Brood. Brood has probably, let's say, 10 employees. We have about 2 people working at all times, unless, of course, me or my wife are working. So let's say we have around about 170 labor hours a week. And let's say because of these unemployments and everything else, we have to pay an additional $5 a labor hour. That's an additional $850 a week. To put that in perspective, because there's 4.33 weeks on average in a month, that's an additional $3,680 a month. I'm here to tell you guys, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. Literally, we, who risked everything, would be making nothing at that rate. It's not exactly like these small businesses are super high margin businesses. And so I'm like, why do they think small business owners have so much money that they can just afford to pay $5 an hour more? And they can just take it out of their pay. They think we're raking home that extra $3,000 a month, $3,600 a month, $3,700 a month. They think we're taking that and we're raking it home. When that's not what's going on at all. And I thought, why do they think this way? And then I realized it. And when I realized it, I wanted to pull my hair out. This is the greatest scam the Democrats have sold that people haven't realized. The Democrats have rallied fighting corporate businesses. Fighting corporate businesses that make tons of profits and, in their opinion, pay their staff not a living wage or write off welfare, and they're making large profits while their employees are writing off welfare. Take Walmart that makes billions, things like that. And they're saying, listen, this company's making billions. They can afford to pay their people more. And which, outside looking in, you can make that assessment, I guess. So they've looked at that, and they look at the problems corporate businesses do, and then the Democrats have sold these people that small businesses are the same as these corporate businesses. Because Walmart makes billions, they assume all business owners make billions. And it's just not true. And it's a scam. They've sold them to hate business owners in general because of the actions of the largest business. Walmart is the largest employer in the country. In the country. But yet they have convinced their people that a small business owner behaves and acts exactly the same way as the largest corporations in the country that they rally against. And whether it's through working with the largest corporations that they have said they've rallied against it, and they've said, oh, these small businesses are terrible, big business is terrible and everything else. And so they've rallied it to create laws that help the corporations you're crying about in the first place by crushing small mom and pop shops. It is the biggest scam in the world. They've took the crimes of these large corporations to sell you on a set of policies that only benefits the large corporations and crushes small local business. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for a small business owner to see this. To try to understand, why do people think these small business owners are making thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars a month? And I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized they have convinced everyone that I'm just as bad as Walmart. Or I'm just as bad as these big millionaires and billionaires all around this country. Because people haven't taken a second to look at the actual stats. Here's the stats for you guys. 86% of people are employed by small businesses in this country. The average company in this country employs under 20 people. The average CEO in this country makes right around $90,000 a year. Not a bad income regardless, but not millions a year like you're hearing how these giant corporations make about $90,000 a year. That's the average CEO. That's the average company in America. So when you're making your business policies, that's who you're affecting. These large corporations like Walmart, they figure it out. They've got their self-checkout lines. They've been preparing to turn you against small business and put in policies that actually benefits them for years. Automated checkout lines. Robotic floor scrubbers now at Walmart, replacing employees that mop and run auto scrubbers. Automated inventory systems and tracking. Self-service kiosks, as I said. Fast food restaurants creating and making robots that can serve and prepare your food, which is fine. Innovation's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what you're regulating away is the small business owner. These are your friends, your family. These are the positions and places a lot of these people dream to be in one day, to own their own business. But yet they can't stop themselves from turning against their neighborhood business owners. It's sad to see, it's sad to say, it's one of the greatest scams that the Democrats are pulling off, and no one's really talking about it. Well, thank you guys for joining me this evening. As always, feel free to listen to the podcast, Fresh Brewed Kentucky Politics. Please check us out online, buy our coffee, brewedco.com, brewedco.com. As well, you can come by the shop. And please, once again, hit the share button, tell somebody about us. Let's get some people out here. Thank you so much.